So I would like to think that I've learnt quite a bit through my experience playing around with focusing on the planche, right? Um, so specifically the experimenting of different exercises, the frequency of training planche, and essentially just playing around with what works in terms of my own experience and how would these new exercises play around with changing or providing diversity in training and thus improving my planche in the end run, right? Now, there were a few comments, specifically in Mantis Calisthenics, that provided actually very great insight into the variety that's provided or that's required in the planche training, right? He mentioned things about the Wenning warm-up, which pre-fatigues your weak muscles and thus recruits these muscles and engages them more effectively in your planche so that you're, I guess, able to better improve your posture, work on the lacking areas which require the most improvement, right? Other things he suggested was hypertrophy work, right? Things that allow you to have long duration, high reps, and essentially provides the volume of the work or the foundational base strength that you can improve such that, I guess, it gives you that vessel for you to have the physical demand for what the planche requires, right? Now, in my past 3 months of planche training, the biggest thing I lacked was volume and variety. I played around with planche leans and planche attempts, right? I realized these felt good. I saw genuine progression by performing these exercises, right? That was the first time I introduced some form of a new stimulus to the planche. And there's no coincidence that after introducing a new stimulus, I'm seeing new improvement, right? And I guess due to how frequent and daily my revisions are of reflections of these planche trainings, right? It seems that I come to an abrupt conclusion fairly frequently, right? I come to a conclusion very fast. And I guess this, what you might consider a preconceived notion of like this new stimulus or this one planche lean exercise improving suddenly becomes the catalyst or I guess the crux of my whole training, right? So I start to worship this exercise as the best way at attacking the planche, right? But with an exercise that's so demanding and that requires such a large sacrifice of time, probably in the 2 to 3 years range, right? It comes to no surprise that you need to diversify your training. You need a constant new stimulus and you need to play around with high intensity, volume, and repetition, right? So, for the past 3 months, I think by adapting myself to the neurological understanding of the planche, right, causing that greater leaning, understanding that particular position where I'm able to lean and utilize more of my anterior delts, that's when I started to, start to use the base strength that I was hiding, right? Or not necessarily hiding, but not unleashing that potential, right? But once I have developed that kind of neurological understanding, it's now the time to introduce new stimulus, increase the hypertrophy work in order to, again, increase my physical strength in order for my mental development to start to grasp that demand of the physical aspect, right? So that's why recently I've been doing quite a bit of handstand push-up work, mainly really focusing on the anterior delts and the shoulder area, so like the middle fibers of the deltoids, right? Now, I'm not neglecting the high intense planche leans because I still find those are very important in order to still have a strong understanding of that leaning position, right? Sometimes if you focus purely on strength, you start to lose the skill aspect of the planche. And if you focus too much on the skill, you start to lose the strength aspect of the planche. So, aside from that, the experiments that I've been doing, the variety that I've been introducing, has kind of allowed me to overcome that adaptive resistance that I've developed to the original training schemes, right? So once I started adding in these base exercises, right, it seems somewhat contradictory that by doing supposed supplementary exercises that don't directly aim for the planche, right, it's somewhat contradictory that these exercises is what is the background work and helps to pursue your planche, right? And I guess I was rather stubborn in the fact that I purely wanted to see the planche as a skill requirement. I believed that I had the strength or the physical demand in order for me to slowly develop that neuromuscular understanding, but I was actually lacking that strength aspect of this high demanding skill, right? So going a bit more in depth with the adaptive resistance, I think that once you're getting tired of this same stimulus, right, your body starts to get used to that movement or that stimulus, right? So it finds more efficient pathways to do that skill, right? So you get better at doing that particular exercise rather than the main goal, which is the planche, right? And that's sort of what happened to me when I was focusing on planche leans and neglecting the volume work that was required. I developed resistance to this exercise. And although it helps, right? I believe that if I start to introduce more hypertrophy work, bring in a bit more volume, that's where I can redevelop or remodel that old stimulus of the planche lean and then strengthen it such that I redesign it to a new stimulus that my body's not so used to, right? Now, Mentis Calisthenics also mentioned bicep curls, right? Because the biceps, or specifically the distal bicep tendon, is required, it has a large demand in the planche, right? And I thought when I thought about the planche originally, right, I always thought, well, if you're holding the planche with a straight arm, there is minimal flexion that's required, which is the main role of the biceps, right? But that's not necessarily the case because when you're in that high, intense hold, you are stretching the bicep and you're stretching the tendon. So instinctively, your tendon wants to keep it in position and will contract in that manner. So I guess another thing that I do want to bring about is bicep curls or exercises that help to work on the, in general, bicep work and my strength, overall strength, all right? So over here, you can see me doing Lou raises. I just kind of wanted to have a look at lateral raises, working on exercises that build up overall and strength and conditioning of my shoulder, right? So essentially, the way I can bring about this whole training scheme was start is intense planche holds, things that work on the neurological aspect of the planche. And then you finish it off with the volume and the hypertrophy work, which relies on the base strength of the exercise. So that was basically it, and I'll finish it off here.